Hi everyone, welcome back to English Talking Practice. I'm Lily and I'm here with David. How are you feeling today?
Hey everyone, I'm David. We're really excited to have you with us today. Lily, I have to ask, have you ever felt nervous before a job interview?
Oh, yes. I remember my first interview in English. I knew what I wanted to say, but I was so nervous that I forgot some words.
That's so relatable. And I think many of our listeners have experienced the same thing.
Exactly. You prepare so much, but then the interview starts and you feel stuck. You don't know how to explain your experience or answer questions confidently.
That's why today's episode is so important. We're going to help you talk about your job interview in English.
Whether you're preparing for an interview or you want to tell someone about an interview you already had, this episode is for you.
Job interviews are stressful, but talking about them in English doesn't have to be difficult.
So today, we're going to teach you everything you need to feel confident. Before we jump in, please, if you enjoy this structured way of learning, help us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It truly helps us a lot.
Yes, it helps so much. And when you subscribe, you join our English Talking Practice community. In this episode, you'll learn common job interview vocabulary like position, qualification, hire, and candidate.
You'll also learn how to describe your interview experience, how to talk about interview questions, and how to express your feelings about the interview.
We'll practice natural conversation phrases that English speakers use when discussing job interviews.
And don't worry, we'll keep everything simple, clear, and easy to follow.
This is useful for talking with friends about your interview, explaining your job search to family, networking conversations, and even English classes.
Anytime someone asks, "How did your interview go?" you'll know exactly what to say.
All right, let's get started and learn how to talk about your job interview in English.
All right, David, before we dive into describing the interview, let's start with something simple. How do we start a conversation about a job interview?
Yes, that's a great place to start. In English, one of the most common ways is simply asking, "How did your interview go?"
Exactly. It's friendly, supportive, and works in any situation, with friends, family, or colleagues.
And if you want to be more specific, you can ask, "How was your job interview?" That's direct and clear.
Or even, "Did your interview go well?" This gives the person an easy way to say yes or no and then explain.
And sometimes people keep it casual with, "How did it go?" Simple, short, and friendly.
Let's imagine a short mini dialogue. David, you start.
Okay. "Hey Lily, how did your interview go yesterday?"
It went really well. The interviewer was friendly and I felt confident answering most of the questions. They asked about my experience and skills, and I think I explained everything clearly.
That's great. I'm happy for you. When will you hear back?
They said they'll contact me within a week. I'm feeling hopeful.
Perfect. Notice how we didn't rush through the sentences. Even short explanations make the conversation interesting.
Yes, and even if your interview was difficult, you can say something like, "It was challenging, but I did my best," and it sounds natural.
Exactly. You can also add a little detail to make it more engaging, like a specific question they asked or how you felt. "I was nervous at first, but I relaxed after a few minutes."
Right, and time expressions help too. Words like yesterday, last week, or this morning.
So starting a conversation is all about being open, sharing a little detail, and keeping it natural. In the next section, we'll expand your vocabulary so you can talk about interviews confidently and naturally.
All right, David, now that we know how to start a conversation, let's talk about the essential vocabulary for discussing job interviews.
Yes, this is super useful because it helps you sound professional and confident when talking about your experience.
Let's start with the basics, the word interview itself. An interview is a formal meeting where someone asks you questions to see if you're right for a job.
And the person asking questions is called the interviewer. For example, the interviewer was very professional.
The person being interviewed, that's you, is called the candidate or applicant. You can say, I'm a candidate for the marketing position.
Speaking of position, that's another important word. Position means the job you're applying for, like I applied for a sales position.
You can also say role. It means the same thing. I interviewed for a management role.
Now let's talk about what you need for the job. We use the word qualification. Your qualifications are your skills, education, and experience.
For example, I have the right qualifications for this position, or they asked about my qualifications.
And similar to that is requirement. Requirements are what the company needs from candidates. Like one requirement is 3 years of experience.
Another important word is hire. To hire someone means to give them the job. I hope they hire me, or they're planning to hire 3 people.
And if you get the job, you might hear you got the job, or congratulations, we'd like to offer you the position.
Now let's talk about the job interview process. Many interviews have multiple stages. You might have a phone interview first.
That's an interview done over the phone. Then you might have an in-person interview where you meet face-to-face.
Or nowadays, many companies do video interviews using Zoom or other platforms.
And some companies have a panel interview where multiple people interview you at the same time.
Yes, that can feel intimidating, but remember, they just want to get to know you better.
Now let's talk about common interview questions. One of the most common is, tell me about yourself.
This is usually the first question. They want to know about your background, experience, and why you're interested in the job.
Another common one is, what are your strengths? This means, what are you good at?
And the opposite. What are your weaknesses? This means, what do you need to improve?
You might also hear, why do you want to work here? Or, why are you interested in this position?
And often they ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years? They want to know your career goals.
These are the main question types, and we'll practice answering them later.
One more important phrase, follow up. After the interview, you can follow up with an email to say thank you and show interest.
For example, I sent a follow-up email thanking them for the opportunity.
Perfect. Now, in the next section, we'll learn how to describe your interview experience using these words naturally. All right, David, now it's time to describe what actually happened during your interview. This is where past simple tense comes in handy.
Exactly. We use past simple for things that already happened, like I had, I answered, I explained, and so on.
Let's start with some simple examples. You can say, I had an interview yesterday, or the interview lasted about 30 minutes.
Or, the interviewer asked about my experience. I answered all the questions. Or, I explained my skills.
Let's try a mini dialogue. David, you go first.
Okay. Hey, Lily, how did your job interview go?
It went really well. I arrived 10 minutes early, and the interviewer was very friendly. She asked about my previous job, my skills, and why I wanted the position. I felt prepared and answered everything clearly.
That sounds great. How long did it last?
About 45 minutes. At the end, she explained the next steps and said they would contact me within a week.
Excellent. I had mine last Friday. The interviewer asked me to describe a challenging situation I faced at work. I gave an example and explained how I solved it. Overall, it felt positive.
See? Even simple sentences with a few details make your story clear and interesting.
And don't forget to add feelings if you want. For example, I felt nervous at first, but then I relaxed. Or I was confident when answering their questions.
Time expressions make everything clear, too. Yesterday, last week, this morning, they help organize your story naturally.
Exactly. Even short, clear sentences are better than trying to make a long, complicated story. Something like, "The interview was good. I answered all their questions," is completely natural.
And if you want, you can combine a few sentences. I had an interview yesterday. The interviewer was friendly. I felt confident.
That's perfect. You're telling a story, giving details, and adding your feelings all at once.
Remember, the key is simple, clear sentences that sound friendly and natural. You don't need to overcomplicate it.
Next, we'll talk about how to describe specific interview questions and your answers, which adds more depth to your conversation.
All right, David, now let's talk about how to describe the specific questions you were asked during the interview.
Yes, this is really useful because it helps the listener understand what the interview was like.
When someone asks, "What did they ask you?" you can describe the questions. For example, "They asked me to tell me about myself."
Or, "They asked about my previous work experience," or, "They wanted to know about my strengths and weaknesses."
Let's do a mini dialogue. David, you go first.
"Hey Lily, what kind of questions did they ask in your interview?"
Well, first, they asked me to introduce myself. Then they asked about my previous job and what I learned there. They also asked why I wanted to work for their company.
How did you answer that last one?
I said I admired their company values and that the position matches my skills and career goals. I felt good about my answer.
That's perfect. In my interview, they asked me to describe a challenging situation I faced at work. I gave an example and explained how I solved it.
See how easy it is to explain? You can use phrases like, "they asked me about," or "they wanted to know about."
Yes, and when describing your answer, you can say, "I told them," or "I explained that," or "I gave them an example of."
Another common structure is, "they asked if I had experience with," for example, "they asked if I had experience with social media marketing."
Right, and you can respond with, "I said yes, I have 2 years of experience," or "I explained my background in that area."
If they ask a difficult question, you can say, "That was a challenging question, but I did my best to answer it."
Or, "I needed a moment to think, but then I gave a clear answer." That sounds honest and natural.
Exactly. Now, let's practice a few more common questions. What are your strengths? You can say, "I told them I'm organized, reliable, and good at problem solving."
And for "what are your weaknesses," you can say, "I said I sometimes focus too much on details, but I'm working on balancing quality with efficiency."
Perfect. That's honest, but also shows you're self-aware and improving.
Using these phrases makes your English sound natural when discussing interviews with friends and family.
In the next section, we'll focus on expressing your feelings about the interview, which really helps your conversation sound human and relatable. Now, David, let's talk about one of my favorite parts, expressing how you felt during and after the interview.
Yes, adding feelings makes your conversation sound real and relatable. It's not just what happened, but how you felt about it.
Some common words are nervous, confident, prepared, hopeful, stressed, and relieved. For example, "I felt nervous at first."
Or, "I felt confident when answering their questions." Or, "I was relieved when it was over."
You can also describe the interview itself. Was it formal, casual, friendly, or intimidating?
For example, "The interview was quite formal," or "The interviewer was very friendly, which helped me relax."
Let's try a mini dialogue. "Hey, David, how did you feel during your interview?"
Honestly, I was really nervous before it started. My hands were shaking a little, but once we started talking, I felt more comfortable. The interviewer was warm and encouraging.
That's great. I felt the same way in mine. I was anxious on the way there, but once I sat down and we started talking, I felt prepared and confident.
See how you can combine feelings with the timeline? "At first I was nervous, but then I felt confident" is very natural.
Yes, you can also describe how you felt after. "I felt good about my answers," or "I left feeling hopeful."
Or even, "I'm not sure how it went. I felt okay, but not great." That's honest and natural too.
And don't forget, feelings help your listener connect with you. It makes the conversation more personal and real.
You could also describe specific moments. When they asked about my weakness, I felt a bit uncomfortable, but I gave an honest answer.
Or when they smiled and nodded, I felt encouraged. It seemed like they liked my response.
These small details make your story more interesting and show that you're reflecting on the experience.
Exactly. Words like nervous, confident, prepared, hopeful, relieved, and anxious are enough to describe most interview feelings.
In the next section, we'll talk about what happens after the interview, the waiting period, and next steps.
All right, David. Now let's talk about what happens after the interview ends. This is an important part of the process.
Yes, after the interview, there's usually a waiting period. You wait to hear if you got the job or not.
The company might say, "We'll contact you within a week," or "You'll hear from us in a few days."
You can describe this by saying, "I'm waiting to hear back from them," or "They said they'd contact me by Friday."
Let's do a mini dialogue. David, have you heard back from your interview yet?
Not yet. They said they'd let me know within 2 weeks. It's been 1 week so far, so I'm still waiting.
How do you feel about it?
I'm a bit anxious, but also hopeful. I think it went well, so now I'm just being patient.
I understand. The waiting is sometimes the hardest part. I heard back from mine yesterday, and they want me to come in for a second interview.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. A second interview is a great sign.
Thank you. I'm excited and a little nervous again, but I'm going to prepare well.
See, you can use phrases like "I'm waiting to hear back," or "I haven't heard anything yet," or "They contacted me yesterday."
Yes, and if you get good news, you can say, "They offered me the job," or "I got the position."
And if you get a second interview, you can say, "They invited me for a second interview," or "I have a follow-up interview next week."
Sometimes companies send a rejection. If that happens, you can say, "Unfortunately, I didn't get the job," or "They went with another candidate."
That's okay to say. It's honest, and it happens to everyone. You can also add, "But I learned a lot from the experience."
Exactly. And after the interview, many people send a thank you email. You can say, "I sent a follow-up email thanking them for their time."
That's a professional move and shows you're interested. You can describe it by saying, "I followed up with a thank you note."
Perfect. These phrases help you talk about every stage of the interview process naturally.
Now let's move on to a full practice dialogue where we put everything together, before, during, and after the interview.
Hey, David, I heard you had a job interview last week. How did it go?
Hey, Lily. Yes, I did. It was on Tuesday. Overall, it went pretty well.
That's great. Tell me about it. What position were you interviewing for?
I applied for a marketing coordinator position at a tech company. The job description matched my skills perfectly, so I felt confident going in.
What was the interview like? Was it formal or casual?
It was semi-formal. The interviewer was friendly but professional. It was a video interview, which was convenient.
What kind of questions did they ask?
First, they asked me to introduce myself and talk about my background. Then they asked about my previous work experience and why I wanted to leave my current job.
How did you answer that?
I explained that I'm looking for new challenges and opportunities to grow. I also mentioned that their company values align with mine.
That's a great answer. Did they ask any difficult questions?
Yes, they asked me to describe a time when I failed at something. That was tough, but I gave an honest example and explained what I learned from it.
Perfect. Showing self-awareness is so important. How did you feel during the interview?
I was nervous at first, but once we started talking, I relaxed. The interviewer was encouraging, and that helps me feel more confident.
How long did the interview last?
About 40 minutes. At the end, they explained the next steps and said they'd contact me within 2 weeks.
Have you heard back yet?
Not yet. It's been 1 week, so I'm still in the waiting period. I'm hopeful, but trying to be patient.
Did you send a follow-up email?
Yes, I sent a thank you email the next day, expressing my appreciation for the opportunity and my continued interest in the position.
That's smart. It shows professionalism. How are you feeling about your chances?
I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. I think I presented myself well, but you never know. I'm also continuing to apply to other positions just in case.
That's a good approach. Even if this one doesn't work out, it sounds like you gained valuable experience.
Exactly. Every interview helps me improve. What about you? Are you looking for a new job too?
Actually, yes. I have an interview coming up next Monday. I'm both excited and nervous.
You'll do great. Just be yourself, prepare your examples, and remember to breathe.
Thanks, David. I appreciate the encouragement.
See, everyone? Even short, simple sentences like these make your conversation natural and clear.
Yes, and you can always ask questions to keep the conversation going, like, what position or how did you feel?
Exactly. Talking about interviews is a normal part of life, and with these phrases, you can do it confidently in English.
Now let's move on to our recap and pronunciation practice to make sure you remember all the key words and phrases. All right, everyone, let's do a quick recap of everything we learned about job interviews today.
Yes, today we practiced starting conversations about interviews, key vocabulary, describing your experience, talking about questions, expressing feelings, and discussing the waiting period.
Let's review some key words. Try to say them aloud with me. Interview, interviewer, candidate, position, role, qualification, requirement, hire.
Great! Now let's practice pronunciation. First word, interview.
Interview,
Interviewer.
interviewer,
Candidate.
candidate,
Position.
position,
Qualification.
qualification,
Requirement.
requirement,
Hire.
hire,
Follow up.
follow up.
Excellent! Now let's practice some common phrases. Repeat after me. How did your interview go?
How did your interview go?
The interview went really well.
The interview went really well.
They asked about my experience.
They asked about my experience.
I felt nervous at first, but then I relaxed.
I felt nervous at first, but then I relaxed.
I'm waiting to hear back from them.
I'm waiting to hear back from them.
I sent a follow-up email.
I sent a follow-up email.
They offered me the position.
They offered me the position. Perfect. Now let's practice some question-answer pairs. David will ask and I'll answer. Then we'll switch.
How did your interview go?
It went really well. I felt confident and answered all their questions. What questions did they ask you?
They asked about my strengths, my experience, and why I wanted the job. How did you feel during the interview?
I was nervous at first, but the interviewer was friendly and I relaxed. Have you heard back yet?
Not yet. They said they'd contact me within a week. Excellent work. Combining activities, feelings, and timeline makes your English sound fluent and natural.
Remember, practice a little every day and you'll feel more confident talking about job interviews.
Now let's move on to our outro and the question of the day.
Hey David, before we finish, I want to say, talking about job interviews can feel stressful, but having the right words makes it so much easier.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone feels nervous before and during interviews. It's completely normal.
The more you practice describing your experience in English, the more natural it becomes.
Thanks so much for joining us today and learning how to talk about job interviews in English.
Yes, we really appreciate you practicing with us. Even a few minutes of practice makes a big difference.
Here's a little challenge for you. Think about a job interview you've had, or imagine one you might have. Try to describe it in English using 3 to 4 simple sentences.
You can talk about the position, how you felt, what questions they asked, and whether it went well.
Now it's time for our question of the day.
We'd love to hear from you. Answer in the comments or say it out loud to practice.
Question of the day. Have you ever had a job interview? How did it go? Or if you haven't had one yet, what job would you like to interview for?
Try to answer in 2 to 3 simple sentences. Remember, making mistakes is okay. Practicing is what really matters.
Little steps every day make a big difference in speaking English naturally and confidently.
And if you have a job interview coming up, we're sending you positive energy. You've got this.
Prepare well, be yourself, and remember, the interview is also your chance to see if the company is right for you.
Great point, David. It's a two-way conversation, not an interrogation.
Exactly. All right, everyone, that's it for today's episode. Please, if you enjoy this video, help us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It truly helps us a lot.
I'm Lily.
And I'm David.
Thanks for listening to English Talking Practice.
Keep practicing, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone. Good luck with your job search.
See you next time.